Go. We're going live right now, partner. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
We're live.
Going, everybody.
So I think based on what we were talking about just a few minutes before we went live, I feel like I can speak for everybody when I say we would really like to see that She-Hulk Deadpool crossover.
Yes.
With the
yes.
The meeting of the fourth wall breaking Marvel heroes. Please, can we make this happen at some point?
And Steve, and this goes to what I started to say before about the He-Man Woman Haters Club going nuts about everything. And I've seen people say she stole Deadpool's fourth wall breaking. No, motherfuckers, she's been doing it since 1980. Deadpool didn't even exist until 1991.
And also, I hate to tell you, but that conceit has been around for a lot longer than that. Like it's as if Deadpool was the first character ever to turn to the camera. It's like, are you kidding? Are you serious?
That's the problem with these fanboys. They think that the first thing they saw is the first time it's ever been done.
Well, it's just like the same.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, they did that shit in Wayne's World, and that wasn't even the first time. Like, it's been done. Richard III does it. Like,
they haven't seen those things, so they don't exist.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, if you remember, like when Captain Marvel was coming out, and they were freaking out because the Captain Marvel was a woman. I'm like, again, Captain Marvel's been a woman on and off since 1979. Like,
you know what these guys remind me of? It's like an infant who hasn't developed object permanence yet. You know, like when you turn away from something, but you know it's still there, and not to bump into it. That's what these guys are like.
Well, maybe they just need somebody to play peekaboo with.
Or you need to watch the Teletubbies. They just need to watch the Teletubbies. The Teletubbies helps teach us like a toddler's abject permanences work.
I bet the Teletubbies are all woke now too.
Remember about the purple one?
That's why they were. That's why they were pissed about it back. That's why Jerry Falwell was so mad about Tinky Winky.
Well, I was going to say
Teletubby.
Geek said he said it fast. So when he said object permanence, he said like abject permanence. And like, that's a trippy concept. Abject.
That's hilarious. Abject permanence.
Okay, write it down. Mark
that should be the name of a band.
Oh my God, that is totally the name of like an early '90s alternative grunge band.
Yes,
they played in Seattle along with Nirvana and Pearl Jam. They never got signed, but people in the area know them. Abject, you think Sonic Youth was cool? Abject Permanence. You never saw an Abject Permanence show.
Tonight we have Bud Honey, Candlebox, and Abject Permanence. But opening up the Melvins.
Playing this summer at the Washington State Fair. They're back. Abject Permanence.
You know, what's always funny to me is in fiction when people try to come up with fancy or scary, just smart sounding names, and it actually means something really dumb. Like there's this Transformers character that turns into a Triceratops, where they call him Tricerodon, which literally translates to three-horned tooth, which is pretty darn metal. A tooth with three horns coming out of it, that's metal as shit.
Ooh. Big scary dinosaur.
The other thing too with the He-Man Woman Hater Club is like, when there's that one part in the first episode where he's like, well, how did you learn to control your anger so quickly? She's like, I've been doing this shit my whole life. And again, the He-Man Woman Hater Club had to go crazy over it. I'm like, yeah, but she's not wrong. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And in fact, the guy who's angry about it is probably the reason. You guys like you are the reason why all women have that experience.
But you see, it's logical. It's rational when men get all pissy about things. Their emotions are smart.
Right.
Well, and also one of the things
but I will say one thing that occurred to me, and I was just like, okay, whatever, is that women's emotions tend to fluctuate more because, or women who menstruate, people who menstruate, their emotions tend to fluctuate more, whereas. If you don't, people with higher testosterone are just more consistently pissy.
Yes.
So there's that.
And the funniest part about all of that is the guys that are upset about that are legitimately wrong. Like, I don't know if the series is going to go into it, but Bruce Banner is like, he had the problems with it, not because he was a Hulk, but because Bruce Banner had those underlying problems.
That's
it's actually addressed in the comics,
That's my secret.
Oh, it's a big I was gonna Joe. I was just gonna. It's a big deal in the comics, and also her saying her answer of basically saying like I always have to control my anger. That's my whole life. He literally Bruce says that in the Avengers when they say how have you learned to control your transformations? And he says my secret is I'm always angry.
I'm always angry.
You know what though? I this is one thing I appreciate about the 2003 Ang Lee Hulk movie is how there it was less about just being mad and more about Bruce's trauma, from when he was a kid.
That made that movie much more interesting.
Sure.
I really
more sympathetic.
Yes, exactly. Isaiah, you had your hand up.
Yeah, Isaiah's hand is up.
Yeah, piggybacking off of Superman, I've not really watched any of the Superman movies as extensive as you guys do. What as someone who's never really gotten into it, what would be the very first Superman movie you think I should watch?
I would say start with Superman the movie. Start with the first Christopher Reeve one.
78 was it?
The 78, 79,
78, yeah, something like late 70s, start with that one. And honestly, I mean, I love Superman 2 as well. But I mean, you could probably get by with just watching the first Christopher Reeve. Like that's that's the one that everybody sort of references, and that's the big one.
Is that the one where
Reeves continues to be good in all of them. So
he's
even
great.
Though 3 and 4 are genuinely not good movies.
He's great.
They're still good movies.
What's really funny to me is how in Superman and Lois, the guy who plays Superman also voices Sephiroth in some Final Fantasy stuff, who is the complete opposite character of Superman. His whole goal, spoiler alert, he wants to crash a giant planetoid, not even a meteor, into the planet, and then when the life force of the planet spills out as it tries to heal itself, he'll just suck it all up and basically become God. That does not sound like a very Superman thing to do. That sounds like something Zod would do.
Well, see, the thing about Superman 3, because I would definitely watch at least Superman 1 and 2. 2 is a great movie.
Superman 2 is terrific.
Really Superman 3 gets a lot of heat, and a lot of it's deserved, to be fair. But I love that movie. I have seen that movie 17 times, and I'll tell you what. And I'm not, I want to give you spoilers, but the junkyard scene is worth the price of admission.
Okay. The junkyard scene is phenomenal. Well, so Superman 3 is it's a step down after Superman 1 and 2, but it definitely has its moments. And I mean, the junkyard scene that was just mentioned is fantastic. Christopher Reeve's performance when Superman is sort of affected by the kryptonite, he's so good in those scenes, playing a very different side of the character. Robert Vaughn as the villain is fantastic. He has that great scene where he says he learns that Richard Pryor's scheme has failed, and he says, "You're telling me I asked you to kill Superman, and you couldn't even do that one simple thing." And then he just drops the phone. He doesn't even say goodbye. He just drops the phone. It's so funny. So
he makes it sound so trivial.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I was saying.
Go ahead, Isaiah.
Superman 1, where Lex Luthor wants to sink California and make it.
Yeah, that's his master's.
Okay,
that's his scheme. Yeah,
I think I may have seen some of that.
Yeah, same here.
2006 in school, I think, because my history teacher was a major Superman fan, so I think I may have.
And I think that may have been in some way been a inspiration for Tool's song "Enema."
Yeah. That song's all about LA,
about basically dropping Southern California into the ocean.
Yeah. There's a
bye, California.
Learn to swim. I love Tool's music. It's been really difficult for me to listen to Tool's music or the music performed by Tool because of what the lead singer Main James Keenan did on the tour. There was an anonymous post by Twitter. I told him I was 17 when he was 36. And yeah, none of it was consensual. Other stores came out after that with similar details as to were. So that's why, nope. It's like, and I have a friend that has a tattoo of Tool. Imagine how he feels about that. Anyway, but like, that's not what I wanted to raise my hand up. I just got a message like not that long ago from Joanna Roberts that she needs money for food. Her trans NB son Casey needs food, and so I'm pretty much almost close to tap out. So until like this Friday payday, so I'm gonna post the Bacon Bowl again into the live chat and post as well as like her PayPal and Cash App link. So if you have any spare money to like give to like Joanna, or damn it,
if I won the lottery, I would give all these struggling people like pretty much most of my money.
I heard that as if something like disconnected. I was afraid that was my microphone, but no, it was just my Xbox controller. So that's
But if you gave money to struggling people, that wouldn't be fair to all the people who didn't get
fairness.
Money.
Yeah. Well, see, this is the thing that the right wing has kind of soiled our whole culture with for forever, and even this idea that we don't need to tax people who have most of the money. Let's just depend on volunteerism. We'll just donate to charity, and it's as much as I am not. Make sure I'm clear on how I say this. I'm not for UBI because I don't think everybody needs the money. I don't want to check. I think that everyone who needs the money should get it. Put it that way.
Right.
But this idea that somehow people don't deserve to live if and again, this idea that they love to perpetuate this idea that if you're poor, it's because you're not working hard enough, which is utter and complete horseshit. We know there's people working 2 and 3 jobs who are just struggling to get by. They are not poor because they're lazy. In fact, it's the lazy people who were born into wealth, who do nothing, dilettantes, who make decisions with what to do with money that fuck over people on the bottom.
I mean, dude, it's like, now I also say probably some of the reason why I'm poor is because it's like I work 2 jobs. I don't make I make under $1,000 a month, and I pay my bills, and I'm saving for a car, and I spend money on my hobbies sometimes, but so it's not that I'm lazy, it's just that sometimes you're just not born rich.
But even there, the fact some of them would say, "Oh, you spend money, you can't afford to spend money on hobbies," as if we're automatons and all we ever have to do is eat, sleep, and work.
Well, that's how they think about us. They don't think of the vast population as people. They think of us as good little worker bees.
85% of poor people have refrigerators. Dun dun dun.
Oh, those bastards! How dare they?
They're all Jay Gotrocks or something.
Well, it's like if you're not using what little money you have to buy a refrigerator, what the fuck are you supposed to spend it on? Like, what's below a refrigerator?
They want to give as much excuse as possible not to
cosplay. And that's even assuming that 85% of people own refrigerators. Mm-hmm. The majority of rental property has refrigerators.
That's true.
As part
of
the rental.
Right. That's true.
What percentage of poor people own their own homes? Probably real low.
Yeah. But it's
ridiculous. Like millennials, honestly.
Where did you get the idea? Or even something like that? Even something that is like
How are they supposed to meal prep? Using lentils from the grocery store. How are they supposed to meal prep and make lentil stew if they don't have a refrigerator with a freezer?
They're supposed to dig a cellar like they used to back in the day and keep it under the ground, keep it under the frost line.
But I think,
but in a rental property, that's not their ground.
I think that's the problem. Especially
then they need to politely petition their landlord and quietly accept whatever his decision is.
If they just ask nicely, I'm sure the rich people would be so understanding, like
especially since most people who rent from apartments that are corporately owned, so they don't have a landlord, they have a company that owns,
just like managers. If
only Isaiah would stop cosplay, he could be like Elon Musk.
But that's the thing, is that's the whole point about the poem of Bread and Roses, is that the workers not only demand the bread for the sustenance to feed the body, they also want want the luxuries or like art of the roses in order to feed the soul, in order to feed the heart. Right. We need both. We can't just have just like the bread to live on. We need like both. Like Emma Goldman also
Speaking of poetry, Random Geek.
Yes.
Do you have a library card?
No, no, I don't think I have. If chances are, if I have read something, the chances are maybe no. Essentially, maybe I heard it before.
Wait,
maybe
there's libraries in Seattle. I thought Seattle was too hip for libraries.
Excuse you. Libraries are like as hip as it gets.
No, there's a library. There's like a library right over there.
I mean, when you're living in Seattle, they should just download the books into your mind.
No.
Well, here's the thing. All the right wingers who think that you could just live on, basically at sustenance level, I defy them to try it. I defy them to try it. Because you know what? I'll tell you what. Something that was one of the worst things.
They're not going to.
One of the worst things that happened to me.
They think they're better than everyone else, though. That's the problem.
Yeah. One of the worst things that happened to me is also one of the best things that happened to me. Now, mind you, I always came from working class people, right? I didn't come from wealth or anything like that. So I already had working class sensibilities. However, one thing that, if I wasn't clear, actually it's two things, two different things that happened. One was going to the country of Guyana, which used to be formerly British Guyana, and seeing the level of poverty there. And I literally kissed the ground at JFK Airport when I came home because I was so happy to be home. Secondly, though, is I lost a job. So I lost my job. Went to Buffalo, lived with a friend, and then I got let go from that job. And I was working I got a tech support job, which was paying me a fraction of what I'd been making before. And then they cut our hours, so I'm making $7 an hour for 28 hours a week. So I'm and mind you, I've got debts and school debts and student loans and all this kind of stuff from when I was making a lot more money. So I was literally living on Slim Fast and burritos. Because I could buy, 89-cent burritos at 7-Eleven and cans of Slim Fast for 89 cents. So they were portable. I could bring them to work. And the Slim Fast was mostly because I could make sure I got my nutritional intake covered.
Right.
And so it basically, and now Grant, fortunately that didn't persist for very, very long. But even then when I left there and I moved to Allentown, I was still struggling. And having lived through all that, so then when I hear right-wingers say this ridiculous bullshit that they say, I'm like, you've never actually tried to live that way, have you?
Yeah.
Having context to be able to say, no, it's not.
Well,
I remember one time, me and my family, like me and my dad, we were so poor that we went months in both the summer and the winter without lights.
Yeah. Well, it's like whenever somebody complains about, the raising the minimum wage to a living wage. And there's always some asshole who says oh, why should someone who works at McDonald's make, $15-20 an hour? And I always think to the person saying that, you wouldn't do that job for twice that money.
I wouldn't want to work at McDonald's. It'd be hell.
No. You wouldn't do that if McDonald's were hiring and they were paying $30 an hour. Are you really telling me you would want to work there as a person who has such contempt for that job that you don't even think it's worth a living wage?
Well, here's the problem. I think with that argument, because I have dealt with people like this. Mm-hmm. They don't want to raise the minimum wage because they think people who work at McDonald's are not going to work there forever, which is not a guarantee.
That's right. Well, the thing is, even if they're not, what gets me is they still have to live. It's so you basically expect people to provide services for you, but you don't want them to get enough money to be able to support themselves.
They don't live in reality. They just don't live in reality. They don't know how hard it is to be able to live. They don't live in reality. It's so far removed from their experiences. They're not going to empathize with it whatsoever. Well, even if they listen,
and that extends to immigration, right? This whole thing about send all the quote unquote illegals back. So in North Carolina, they got really draconian, and they basically started rounding people up. They started sanctioning companies for having undocumented workers, and so the companies were forced to hire citizens, or at least people that had green cards. And so they started hiring. They hired a bunch of locals, which North Carolina means lots of white people. Most of them did not last the week. 30% of them didn't last a day. Yeah. Because, as we've been saying forever, no one wants to do this job because it's fucking hard. So when we gave those jobs to, supposedly how the migrants are stealing all the jobs. Like, well, when we took the jobs from the migrants and gave them to white people, and white people really didn't want those jobs, and they were having shortages because they couldn't get enough people to work the fields.
Well, and you think about other jobs, other relatively unskilled jobs that do pay good wages. Like if you work for like a road crew or something for the state. Right. I mean, those are for an unskilled job. That's a fairly well-paying job. And the reason why is because it has to be, because nobody would do it for less than a good wage, because it sucks. It's a horrible job. I mean, even if sometimes you make fun of, you get paid, $30 an hour to stand out there and hold a sign. Do you want to stand out in the sun for 8 or 10 hours a day and hold a sign or do anything?
Or the rain
dramatically way too fast, way too close to you.
Do you want to do it? I mean, I wouldn't for anything less than a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah, it's the same thing that they're saying about teachers. It's like there's a teacher shortage. No, there's not. There's plenty of people with the qualifications to be teachers. They're just choosing not to be teachers right now.
Jackass politicians are running the school boards and are being stupid, and teachers are quitting. They want to put in Florida. Oh God, here we go.
Supporting veterans.
Yeah, the veterans in schools.
Yeah.
If you're a veteran, you can apply to teach.
That makes sense.
Mm.
I mean, it does.
So
let's be honest. I mean, because there's
so much overlap in the skills, right? Well, that's the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Somebody was like, "Oh, why are you against veterans?"
There really is, though. I mean, given that they just want to they want to deprofessionalize teaching, tell teachers what to do, and have them do it. I mean, that's what the military trains people to do. Congratulations!
I'm so glad.
It's further indoctrination too.
I'm so glad I got out of school. I'm so glad I'm just glad I graduated because I couldn't last.
I mean, the story should be that there isn't more of a teacher shortage than there is, to be honest, because I mean, I can't imagine any scenario unless they were willing to pay me enough money where I could do it for a year and then retire comfortably for the rest of my life at age like 44, right? Like I cannot imagine a scenario where I would do that, because it's not, I mean, a particular passion of mine. It's not something I feel personally drawn to.
I don't know if Steve likes kids.
Here's here would be the liberal solution. Well, first, the liberal solution would be to pay teachers more.
More, yeah.
But even then, just say we still needed more, right? And they still we wanted to do something for veterans. Okay, well, liberals and leftists would have programs to train, to actually send veterans for actual teaching accreditation.
Exactly.
The proper way.
Those veterans that would actually like to be teachers.
And if you are a veteran and you want to be a teacher, we'll send you to school to be a teacher.
Exactly, and not the 30 hour and not the bullshit 30 hours they're talking about, which is all some cops get, by the way.
Yeah.
Sure.
I don't know about that. I just don't know how veterans would benefit from teaching because they've been in a war zone. What is? I mean, I don't.
Well, right. They can take stress.
Haven't they been shot at enough?
Look, they have this
assumption. They've survived plenty of stress. They can survive more.
Look, they have this assumption that soldiers, veterans, that real Americans would naturally side with fascists.
No, but see, Nick,
that's their idea.
Well, see, Nick, it also goes to one of their other tropes, though. The idea that guns in the classroom are going to keep people safe, and of course, when teachers say, "I'm not I'm not a trained soldier. I'm not a police person. I don't have any training, and nor did I sign up to be in the line of fire and become a soldier." So then they're like, all right, well then we'll put soldiers in the classroom. Like, yeah, great. Now who's going to teach the fucking class?
Really don't trust soldiers over police officers with the guns. So
well, I
don't trust either.
Well, no, here's the thing though. Soldiers have way more accountability than police do.
Yeah, way more training. Yeah,
there's no qualified immunity for soldiers.
You just reminded me of the situation. It was like 4 or 5 years ago now, where this guy who was a soldier and then came back and became a police officer. He used his training from his military days, where there's always you have to be able to tell when someone isn't dangerous.
Right.
And so there was a guy who was waving a gun around, and clearly it was suicide by cop. He was trying to goad this cop into shooting him. Mm-hmm. And the guy could see that. So he tried to talk him down. And then another police officer, came right around the corner, shot him dead, bam. And just looked at the first officer like, what the hell? Like, why didn't you put him down, man? You endangered all of us by not taking him out immediately. And it was the soldier who showed restraint who got in trouble with the police chief.
Yeah. Right, right, which goes to what I've been saying for quite a long time. It's not bad apples. The roots of the tree are rotten. Bad cops would not persist if there were not bad leadership.
Yeah, exactly. What do they always say? Better to be better to be judged by 12 than carried by 6.
Yeah, that's very
they
strong.
They say, like, don't even take a chance with your own life. Always put down the civilian first.
And then they take a class called Killology.
Yes, there's such a thing as Killology. Yeah.
Here's the thing about this whole thing with putting cops and soldiers and teachers. In schools. It's obviously going to be allocated to the poor people. That's going to happen, and the people of color. Like Ron DeSantis ain't going to send, he's not going to send his kids to schools where the teachers are cops or soldiers. It's going to be allocated to poor people and people of color. Those are who are going to get fucked by this policy.
And it's going to become part of the perception of, if a school has, so many cops assigned to it or so many soldiers assigned to it, if it comes to that, whatever, that'll become another signifier of, that's a bad school.
How many videos do we need to see of a grown-ass man beating up, like a teenage black girl in the school?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like the posting cops in schools has worked out so well so far. Why wouldn't we double down on that? It's because it's such a raging success.
And again, this goes to another thing that I have about the cops is that they we try to make it out like they're soldiers and like their job is so tough. They use force when the person is vulnerable. When in Uvalde, when the perp was not vulnerable, they hid and they let 21 people die, 19 children, because they were afraid. Well, you know what? People in the military, I'm sure they get afraid in war, yet they do their job. So clearly they're not soldiers.
Well, can you imagine a firefighter saying, "I'm not going into that burning building to save those kids. I'm afraid. I would think I'll get killed in there."
Most people would rush into that school to help. It's just for some reason this one occupation we told them not to. Supposedly early on, a few officers did try to go in. Yeah. And then the police chief's like, no, don't you dare.
Yeah, some people there wanted to do something, and they were prevented.
They were prevented.
Even a few of the officers wanted to, but they were reined in.
Yeah.
If I ever get off my ass and make another video, I wanted to make a video about Uvalde, and I want to call it "We Weren't Soldiers."
That's such a good title.
That sounds like a sequel to "We Were Soldiers" by Mel Gibson.
There you go. So that's it. Joe McClure, your hands up.
It's almost worse than that because, I'll give you an example. On my job, I work in a field where I have to deal with people who are having crisis situations. I work in the mental health field. And in our facility, we have training and authority in cases where it's necessary to go hands-on and to contain and restrain the patients. And the caveat for that is our primary job is de-escalation. Yes. So we can really only do that when de-escalation has already failed or the threat is imminent and I bet you've never killed anybody either. There have been people that have. I of course haven't killed any people, and nobody has been killed by staff while I've been working there. Because anytime there is a death, whether it is our fault or not, it is taken with abrupt seriousness. There is a view to finding out why it happened and preventing it from happening in the future. But that's actually not the point I was coming to, as the job does actually sometimes attract former police officers. And during training, I was actually talking with some of the training staff, and they were talking about how former police officers have a terrible washout rate, because de-escalation, even though it should be part of their training, is something that is counterintuitive for them. And during the training process and during the probationary period, they tend to escalate situations instead of de-escalating them. They are generally let go because of that.
I've watched hundreds of police interaction videos over the last 3 years or so, literally hundreds of videos. And I mean, I probably watched 3 or 4, actually probably over 1,000 at this point, because I watch usually 2 or 3 a day. If like, or sometimes more if I can stomach them. But it's amazing the brevity, how quickly some of these guys, literally to the point of someone saying, cops saying, show me your ID, and someone says, no, I'm not obligated to show you my ID, and immediately, like, not just like getting forceful, just literally hands on immediately. You didn't do what I say, god damn it, I'm going hands on with you. Like, holy shit! Like, we don't need more sociopaths in the police force, and we definitely don't need to be putting them in schools with children.
No. Well, unfortunately, we have made this job.
The problem is in a job where you're told that you're a cop, you're the good person, and the world is full of shitty people. That's not really a culture that breeds de-escalation. It breeds conflict and aggression.
Yeah. They're also taught that they're the boss. That people have to do what they say immediately. Right. And what do you think this does? It makes it a job that attracts bullies, schoolyard bullies who just want a card to keep beating up people. And look at that! Look at what they do.
And then when an officer does do something good, I've seen so many videos where a good cop will either stop a bad cop or drop dime on a bad cop, and they sanction the good cop. For actually like having compassion and empathy and trying not and actually trying to hold their oath. It's amazing. And the number of ones like I watch a lot of First Amendment audit videos, and look, some auditors are dickheads, but a lot of them are pretty good. But even the ones that are dickheads, as long as they're within their rights, they're within their rights, right? But I was watching one just like yesterday where some guy would say, hey, I have a constitutional right to do whatever he was doing. And it's like, and the cop says, I don't want to hear about this Constitution crap. Constitution's crap. This guy took an oath. This guy took an oath to the Constitution, and he said, I don't want to hear about this Constitution crap. And that unfortunately was not unique. I have seen at least dozens of videos where cops basically saying, I don't get, and another one cop literally said, I don't care about your rights. Yeah, I don't care about your rights.
And it's about power for them.
And that's another difference between cops and the military. And believe me, I have more than a few problems with the military and military culture and the way the military is perceived and used, and how there's all kinds of problems with the military. Sure. But one of the causes of conflict between the military top brass and the president during the Trump administration was that the leaders of the military, going up to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, recognized that Trump was wanting them to do things that were flagrantly unconstitutional, and the military guys uniformly saying, we're not doing that. Our job is to serve the Constitution, not to serve any particular president. And if the president is telling us to do things that would violate our oath to the Constitution, we are not going to do that.
Right.
And, and thank God that there are people like that with that attitude, that, high in the food chain. But with cops, you're right. Like, there are a lot of cops that, and it's funny you mention that, because my dad watches a lot of those First Amendment audit videos too. And he is certainly not as liberal or leftist as anyone here. But he has the same, he is constantly amused and dismayed by how little knowledge cops seem to have about what the rights of citizens are, what the limitations of their authority is, as a police officer. Like, so,
let's be fair. Most people treat the Constitution as I guess like text from a Lord of the Rings novel or something. It's just that they read it because it's like magic words to them, but it doesn't really mean anything in their head. It's just have this piece of paper that these like it's like some Dungeons and Dragons shit.
It's like backstory.
It's in Old English
really
too, as well. Language is hard.
It's in Old English.
Well,
it's not though.
The thing too is again because they love cop culture and this idea that they're warriors and they like to act like they're soldiers.
Yeah.
But the citizens are not an enemy power. We're not invaders. We live here, we're the people who they're supposed to be safeguarding, not attacking. But they do have this very adversarial view of the public,
right? And
it's so bizarre that we give police more latitude than we give soldiers who are actually fighting actual war. And this is this warrior mentality and this idea that the cop's job is like the toughest job in the universe is part of the problem, because then when the cops will pop off and do something, it's like, well, you have to understand their job is so hard. Like more electricians die every year in the line of their work than cops. When you count like 50 to 60 cops die every year due to perpetrator action. Because I'm not going to count ones that die in car accidents or have heart attacks or any of that shit. There's the ones that where a perpetrator is at fault for a cop dying. 50 to 60. It's way more electricians that die in the line of duty. Way more.
Yeah, I mean, more cops been in the last couple of years because that's because they all refuse to get vaccinated.
Even if you include those things and people getting and cops refusing to get vaccinated and all of those things
and mask.
Yeah. Well, and also we
drivers,
don't
nurses assistants.
Yeah, I think you do have to include those things because you are including accidents for electricians. So like those things, I mean, given how much cops use their cars, I think that is a very real job hazard.
But even then, if that comes out to about 110 to 120,
exactly.
which is still a tiny
number.
It still
proves your point. So leave that in there.
Pizza delivery drivers die more often on the job than cops.
The other thing is like we don't accept that excuse for certain things. Like if you have a bad day, if you have a stressful job and you come home and you you yell at your spouse or your kids when maybe they don't deserve it, and you say like, I'm sorry, I had a rough day. Like it's not cool, but it's like, okay, you had a rough day. I understand it happens to everybody. If you have a rough day because you have a stressful job and you go home and you kill your wife and kids, nobody's saying, well, yeah, of course what he did was terrible, but have a little sympathy. He had a rough day. He has a high stress job. That's not acceptable.
It's not in that song, had a bad day, killed the family,
killed my wife and kids. Just remember, some of those mass shooters, the excuse has been, I had a bad day and I snapped. And we don't accept it then.
And again, as I said before, we do not accept that from soldiers in actual warfare. We're actually getting shot at and mortared and roadside bombs and all that kind of stuff. We don't put up with
and even if you do accept it on like an emotional level, like even if you do sympathize with the person, they still have to face consequences for what they did. Like even if you think like, well, the cop was wrong and he shouldn't have shot that unarmed kid, but I feel bad for him because of his job. Okay, feel bad for him all you want. That's up to you. He should still go to prison.
Put it this way. There's a black woman who got 6 years because she falsely put down where she lives so that her child could go to a better school. And she got 6 years. That's, she didn't kill anybody. She didn't rape anybody. She basically said, oh, I want my child to go to this better school because it's a dangerous school system where we live. And she got 6 years. Yeah. And this idea that a cop, I shot the wrong person or I freaked out and lost my cool, but it's part of the job.
But think about like why they're trained this way. The police's job isn't to protect and serve us. It's to protect wealthy white people's property from us.
And more proof of this, again, the thing about the roots. There was, I don't know if you saw the video, it was from about a year ago, but actually the incident took place about 3 years ago, where a cop dislocated a woman, there's a woman with dementia who accidentally took some stuff from Walmart and returned it. And then they tracked her down and then the cop purposely dislocated her shoulder And then later on, back at the squad house, they're watching the body cam video, and the guy's like, "Oh, here it is. Watch." And then he does it, and you can hear an audible pop, and they're like, "Oh, listen to that!" And they're bragging about this horrible atrocity that he purposely did. This woman was not a threat to anybody, and she had dementia, so of course she wasn't complying because she didn't understand what the hell was going on.
Yeah.
And the only reason why. Because now those cops, the one cop, he did get convicted, and his basically accomplices, just pleaded guilty. But the only reason why it happened is 2 years after the fact, the lawyers got a hold of the body cam footage. 2 years later, so all the people, so their watch commander, the lieutenant, the captain, everybody, the whole chain of command, all saw that video. They all knew what their cops did, and they were fine with it. They were fine with it because
it's a culture.
That's a culture. Yeah. But then they replaced the chief, and now he's like, "Oh, this is not who we are." Absolutely, it is, motherfucker. It's exactly who you are, because the only reason why you replace your predecessor is because the public found out about it.
Right, because you had no choice.
Reminds me of there was this dash cam video that was released of a cop that had pit maneuvered a pregnant woman because, while on the highway, she, put the hazards on and slowed down, but didn't fully pull over because she was going to go to an off-ramp and go to a safe, not off the area thing. And in response to this becoming a story, the police removed a video off their front page that was giving advice to not be a victim of human trafficking by delaying pulling over and going to a well-lit public area.
Right.
Jesus Christ.
Well, just recently, I saw a video just earlier this past week. Cop, the black woman in her car with 3 children. She's pregnant. She slows down, does the same thing. She pulls into a convenience store parking lot. Cop draws his gun on her, berates the hell out of her. And then he sits there for almost 3 minutes, and she's just standing there. She's got her hand. You're sitting in the car with her hands out the window, and he's just waiting. Now he doesn't give her any commands, nothing. And then at one point, then when he finally tells her to get out of the car, and she's like, "Door's locked," and then he had to take her seatbelt off, and then he goes, "Try something." Try something. This guy wanted to shoot this pregnant woman. Try something. He was daring her, and my surmise is the reason why he waited so long is because, of course, it's hard to sit there with your hands perfectly emotionless, that she would flinch or do something to justify him shooting her.
Yeah.
There was also the cop in Seattle that just shot and killed a pregnant black woman too. Of course, I forgot her name, unfortunately.
Being autistic, I'm scared of you people.
No, understandably, yes.
Well, there was the a couple months ago the Los Angeles County Sheriff who there was some leak about police brutality or police corruption in the sheriff's department, and his response was to call a press conference to announce an investigation into who leaked it. Never mind the actual crime that was that's identified by the leak. He was like, "We're going to find out who leaked this confidential information." Okay, well, glad to see you're on it. Good, you understand what the problem was.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah. Who's holding us accountable? We got to stop that shit.
Yeah, you can't be told. Well, that's the same thing Trump did. He never, showed any sense of concern about the shit that people were leaking. He was like, "Who's leaking all this stuff?" And he would say this in public. Say this in private to your people. "Who's leaking all this shit? They're finding out about all our crimes." No, he would go in front of cameras and be like, "We're going to find out who's leaking all this shit." You're making yourself look worse, dude.
Well, that's the thing, because they're literally at that point admitting that it's true and real.
Well, the same thing with the documents. He's saying "Tell them to bring my documents back." Okay, so you're admitting that you had them. I did the crime they're accusing me of.
It's so hard not to become a doomer sometimes, because I look at this stuff and look, my brain, this might be an autistic thing. I look for patterns everywhere, and my brain creates patterns. So if somebody says they're going to do something, and then they call me up and say sorry, and they put it off a couple weeks, my brain creates a pattern and think, okay, so they're never going to do it. Every week from now on, they're going to postpone another week because that's the world now. You see, and so like if something happens more than a couple times, it becomes, like an endlessly repeating thing. And I just can't imagine things ever changing. So then when I look at all these incidents over the last several years, part of me goes, well, if it was possible for things to get better, then they would have by now. And so it's like I immediately like trend towards doomerism and go like, no, it's always going to be this way. 500 years from now, the cops are going to be exactly like they are now. And like, all these problems are not going to change one bit because they would have by now. And I know that's a distorted way of thinking.
Well, and unfortunately,
because if you think about it, there are situations in which it's worse. It could always be worse, and it's not worse. So because it's not as bad as it could be, that means it's better than it could be, which means it's also possible for it to get better.
And there are examples where it has gotten better.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, let's think, and just remember, the forces that we're talking about that basically do horrible things and keep people down, they want you to feel doomed. They want you to give up. They want you to quail. And it's the same thing too. Like, okay, I know electoral politics are not popular to a lot of people, and they feel like it doesn't get things done, blah, blah, blah. But again, the people who with the money who are doing all the voter suppression things are doing that because your vote does matter. They wouldn't be spending all that money to convince you not to vote and to actually try to literally take your vote away if your vote didn't matter. That's to me is always the buzzword because they want to spend their money on themselves and waste it on bullshit, right? They don't want to spend money on things they don't need to do, but they need to hold you back. They need to prevent you from voting, because if people actually got together, and this is the thing, this is the one problem one of the problems, well, it's not the only problem, but one of the problems I found for those of us on the left side of the fence, to whatever degree we're left, is that we're very proprietary. So we're a very diverse group, and that's actually makes it hard for everyone to come together. And so, but if you add up women and non-whites and LGBTQ people and poor people, that's like 80-85% of the population, right?
Yeah.
So as long as it's in their interest to keep us fighting, arguing with one another who has it worse.
Yeah. It's like it's sort of the opposite of intersectionality. It's looking at what they're doing is looking at where you have privilege and saying, focus on that. And so it gets white women to vote with white men, and it gets poor people who are male to vote with rich people who are male, and things like that. So essentially it's where you're privilege adjacent.
Right.
That it says, it says put in with the people who have power, because it could, again, it goes back to, it could be worse.
And then the other thing they do on top of what Dana said, and in addition to that, they also like to take the fact that because people who are disprivileged, of course, we're disprivileged in different ways. And what they do is they'll point to one group of disprivileged people and say the reason why you're disprivileged is because of these other disprivileged people, right? Yeah. So if you're a poor white dude, it's not because the rich assholes that run the corporations that are exploiting you. It's not that's not why you're broke. It's other poor people from other countries. It's immigrants and all that, and it's LGBTQ. The left is concerned with obsessed
wokeness.
with wokeness and pronouns. And they don't care about your issues. Of course, the at their worst, the Democrats are like not helping, but they're not actively trying to hurt people. Yeah. So at least not as a group anyway. So the thing is that but this is the thing they work. The problem is for the left. And this is, you wonder, like, why does it work? Because if you really look at it, right-wing thinking it's only about 30% of the population, right? The thing is that the stuff that they say and do and believe, it's visceral, it's lizard brain shit, and as a result, it's intuitive. It doesn't have to be true; it just has to sound true. Yeah. And because it's stuff, again, it's intuitive. That's where we fail a lot. Like, okay, here's one of my favorite is when a few years back, a whole bunch of states were saying, well, we don't want people on welfare to be using their welfare money for drugs because we shouldn't be subsidizing people's drug habits. Okay, well, instinctively, intuitively, that makes sense, right? We shouldn't be just giving people money so they buy drugs. But then when they actually did it, when they actually had these programs, they found that only 2% of the people on welfare were actually taking any drugs whatsoever, which is far below the national average. But it actually cost more to find out than it did to pay the people the money that they might have been using on drugs.
Always.
And instead, and the other thing too is that the right wing thinking is always punitive. You see, the left would say, okay, if this person has a drug problem, let's spend some additional money and help them get off drugs. Just to help them.
It's an illness more than anything else.
Exactly.
You know what astounds me is just how much energy people put into being bigoted. Like it takes.
It's about punishing others.
But what I mean is like it's exhausting to be racist and all that stuff. It takes so much energy to hate other people for basically no reason. And I don't understand how so many can do that. They can like screw themselves over just to make sure that those people over there are screwed over a little bit harder.
Because it's a negative but it's a negative feedback loop, right?
Exactly.
So basically it's actually their version of doomerism, right? So basically it's those people over there, and then it takes all this energy, and now they're exhausted and they're angry and they don't know why, and so it just keeps feeding itself.
I don't think it's quite that. My conclusion is that just seeing other people suffer gives them some kind of emotional release, maybe even a sexual one, but that's their kink.
Well, there's also there's that great LBJ quote about, if you can convince the lowest white man that he's higher than the tallest black man, then he won't mind so much when you pick his pocket.
Right.
And it goes on to say something like, if you give him someone to blame for his problems, then he'll turn his pockets out for you. Like,
and he won't blame himself. But that thing is just
you brought a kitty too.
Is yes, Danny Cole has a cat. But like she's not speaking, so like only us in the Zoom call will like see the cat unless she unmutes herself and then like starts talking.
Fine, I'll start talking so that everybody can see my kitty. Kitty, a bit more because he's more white. Actually, I'm gonna let him,
she like rubbed under your chin.
Him talk.
My chickens do the same thing.
Nope.
No,
he's
being
right
quiet.
now. He's just investigating.
So anyway, Geek.
My point is that, like, well, going off of like what's been like said, it is a negative feedback move because like one thing about like anger, it's motivating as it were, but like they go to seek out things that you're already angry about, and they get more angry, and it's a negative feedback move. But like Daniel Harper of the podcast I Don't Speak German, which is a great podcast, I recommend all people to listen to. He listens to all the Nazis and all the fascists and all the far right people, and he has noticed that like a lot of times for those people to do those podcasts like stuff or the Daily Show is like they get hot up on energy drinks all the time, and then also drink alcohol too, and so it's just like they're constantly in other addictions and that sort of thing, and that's the only way they can like do that show and scream for 3 hours about like Jews, women, and white people, and black people, I should say. They don't scream about white people except for the bad white people.
They scream about certain white people, but not as a group.
Right.
Yeah, Isaiah, your hand's up.
No, I was saying before we wrap it up, is anyone going to watch the Artemis 1 launch tomorrow?
I will if I remember. I am curious. Yeah.
When is it?
It's like tomorrow morning. They're gonna like make an attempt.
Yeah, I might then.
Yeah.
I work in the afternoon tomorrow, so
I will at least be paying attention. I don't know if I'll literally be watching it live, but I will be keeping my ear open for news. So because it's a long time coming.
So something I wanted to before I forget. I highly recommend the series Primal to anybody who has a moderately strong stomach. It's a series by, I can never remember how to pronounce it, Genndy Tartakovsky or Genndy Tartakovsky. He's the guy behind Samurai Jack, which had a lot of visual storytelling, very little dialogue. This is about a Neanderthal running into dinosaurs and stuff, and so there is no dialogue. It is all visual storytelling. It's all you just being able to like read the emotion on the characters' faces and stuff, and it's amazing. It's art.
Oh, that sounds good.
It's gory.
I've heard of it.
I enjoyed Samurai Jack a lot. So
Genndy Tartakovsky is an amazing artist.
Sometimes I think like they should just have college courses where all they do is just run a couple episodes of Samurai Jack or Primal or whatever and say that just do that if you want to do visual storytelling.
Yeah.
I just want to say that Dana looks sad, and that makes me sad. I'm sorry you're feeling sad.
I gotta run, guys, but I'll see you guys later.
All right, my friend.
Later.
Yep, I'll see Geek at 2.
For Social Justice Alchemy.
For Social Justice Alchemy.
Yes, about an hour after the show ends. Mm-hmm.
So
all right, Isaiah.
Done, and I'll talk to you guys later.
Later.
See you, buddy.
Huh?
Just see ya. Okay. All right.
See ya. Hope you have a good time, dude.
But I'll make one last point about what we were talking a few minutes ago about voting and voter suppression and that kind of thing. And then I'll start to wrap up because we're almost at the end of the hour. But what Serious Mind was saying, one of the frustrating things about the sort of the left bloc politically, liberals and leftists and everybody sort of, on the left side, is
why not just non-Republicans?
Non-Republicans.
Non-fascists.
It seems like on the organized political level, especially the Democratic Party, which is my party, and I claim them, although I am often embarrassed and frustrated by them. We always seem to want to play defense, no matter how superior our position might be. And one of the things that, you're like, the reason that Republicans spend so much time and effort and money on voter suppression is because that's the only way they can win. They know they don't. And I mean, obviously, in some jurisdictions, they have the numbers, but overall, nationally, they don't have the numbers to keep winning elections unless they can discourage people who would vote against them from voting. Like, that's just the way it is. And if it wasn't, and if they didn't know that, they wouldn't be breaking their backs to suppress the vote the way they have been for the last many, many, many years. And it's just frustrating knowing that, and then seeing the leadership of the liberal and leftist, sides of the aisle constantly playing defense and constantly being so reticent, and so reluctant to make big moves. I have a video going up about it tomorrow, about the student loan forgiveness, which I think is a great thing. And I think it is mostly something to celebrate, and it is mostly something we should be claiming as a victory and saying, hell yeah, it's about time we did it, But at the same time, I'm also one of those people that's like, oh God, why wasn't it more?
I'm always going to be like,
but that's okay though. Here's what I always tell people. Because no matter what gets done, it's never good. It should never be enough. Put it that way. So my thing is, instead of moping about what it wasn't, I'm like, hey, this was a good start. Put it in my pocket, and now I'll push for more. Because this is the thing that I always try to tell people, that because they're like, oh, we're always compromising. Compromises are not forever. If you have to compromise a little bit today, but you move in the direction you want to move in, as long as you keep moving, that's the thing. Keep moving. Don't give up. Yeah. Keep moving. Keep pushing. Always, always, always. And so I'm going to take something from Patton. Try never to fight twice over the same dirt. If I can take a big progress over a little progress, I'll take it. If my choice is little progress or stagnation, I'll take little progress. If my choice is stagnation or retrograde, I'll take stagnation, because at least I'm not losing ground.
I think what people's problem is that, like, if you look at the news, they're making it seem like, okay, that's everybody. We did the big thing. No need to try anymore. They make it sound like Biden.
That's how some people feel it. That's how some people feel it.
The only people I hear saying that are leftists, though. I don't hear anybody saying that.
Well, my friend John is still begging for money, so that's I need to get those messages a lot. So
if I may say,
can I make one question?
Okay.
One question.
Okay, go ahead.
I do think the students should have a little skin in the game, though. It should not be automatic free college education.
Why not?
I disagree.
Why not?
Well, because what's to prevent them from partying 4 years?
So what's wrong with that?
What's to prevent students from partying for 4 years during high school?
I'm just saying.
It's an arbitrary cutoff between K-12, which is completely you have an option for completely taxpayer funded education. And then you get past 12th grade, and it's like, nope, you're on your own.
I'm not saying completely on their own. I'm just saying.
I'm saying that's what it is now.
Okay, fair enough. I'm just saying they should have some skin in the game.
Well, and here's the thing. Now, I'm in favor of universal education. Just to make that clear.
Okay.
However, I do understand where. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Michael. Will.
Michael.
I do know where Will is coming from one perspective. My younger stepson, we paid for him to go to school for like 12 years, and he still didn't get a degree. So after a while, it's like, okay, so we supported him, and it's like, well, but at a certain point, when they say, well, look, either do something, or go to a job, or do something like that. But like there are people who could abuse the system, and that thing is what I looked at is that, and that's not fair to everybody, because everybody, the people who do go in and do, and and I'm not saying you shouldn't, because some people go in and go, oh, this is really isn't the career for me, I'm going to go switch. Fair enough, but I do get the idea that there are people. That's one thing we have to accept on the left, that there are unscrupulous people who may take advantage of the situation. I'm not, but let me finish. But to me, I still think we should do it anyway.
Okay.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with it. I think the benefits would outweigh the.
I want to know how that happened, because you have to apply to college. You have to apply. That's one thing that prevents people from just frittering the money away. Second, you can flunk out.
Actually, in our case, he did flunk out and didn't tell us, and we kept sending them the money.
Here's the thing: you didn't send the money to the institution; you sent it to the student. And so I think that's, when for K-12 education, the money does not come to the families or to the student; it goes to the school.
Goes straight to the institution.
Well, again, Dana.
So essentially, there's incentive for the school to enroll students because they get paid, but there is a heck of a lot of incentive not to have students that cost you money. So I think that may help with some of that if we say, here's what we think is reasonable for universities to provide education to any student that meets their standards for enrollment. And so some universities, if they have good endowments, may be able to provide more, which means they will be able to have higher standards for their applications. And so there's going to be some variance there.
Sure.
So that would be one thing that would help to at least counter the, hey, I can just say I'm going to school and then just do whatever I want with my life.
Yeah, I think my go ahead, Nick.
Sorry, I just want to share a perspective too. So, look, this argument, it sounds very similar to me as saying like that if you give people food stamps as in an EBT card, well then they're just gonna try not to work. It's this Sorry, I had a thought and then I lost it because I didn't have to say it in time.
Well, I think I know where you're going.
No. Okay. My problem is, so what if a few people bum out? So what if a few college students, bum out? I think we benefit so much from the majority of them that will be educated that I think it's a worthwhile trade-off. I'm okay with taking that hit. It's worth it.
Well, I don't know this for a fact. I haven't seen any statistics about this, but I think it's just conceivable that at least a few of the people who took advantage of the old school GI Bill after World War II, weren't necessarily the most studious students and kind of blew off their college years. I would imagine that was probably the case for some people, sure, but was not the case for most. And that generation of post-war college graduates changed American history. That's what I mean. Making higher education more accessible and more available to more people. Sure, there'll be some people who take advantage of it and don't get the full benefit. And you could, if you wanted to, you could categorize that as a waste of money. Sure.
Now I remember
but the
what
benefit
I wanted to say.
Far outweigh.
Yep.
Now I remember what I want to say. Okay, the thing is, they do have skin in the game either way, because think of how many jobs you basically need a college degree to even be considered now. If you don't just want to work at like a fast food place.
Right.
So,
and again, this goes back to what I was saying about right-wing thinking, right? Because basically, again, it's always punitive, and it's weird because their rhetoric is that we don't need.
Wait. Don't you mean right-wing thinking?
Well, thank you. You're correct. Is that their rhetoric is very much based on the idea that we don't need government to regulate things because people can be left to their own devices and they'll all pretty much do the right thing. right? That's their rhetoric.
That's the idea,
Their policies are based exactly the opposite, completely opposite. Their policies are based on everyone's an evil, conniving, cheating, stealing scumbag, and basically that's how we have to set up our policies. Because again, the only reason why you'd be against universal education is, again, you believe that that it's going to be widespread people, glomming off the system. And here's another, good example. In Europe, there's a lot fewer drugs that require prescriptions. So like when my wife in Italy, when she was traveling a lot for work, because she was in Italy, you can get antibiotics over the counter. So she would buy them up, and then in the rare instances that we needed to use them, we had them. We didn't have to worry about running to the store for a prescription. And now the right-wing thinking is, well, no, you can't do that because people will overuse, overprescribe. They generally don't. Very few people, a small, like you said, a small number of people do, and most people don't. So it's not a problem.
And it's also like this idea that if you have universal basic income, I mean, I'm still not completely sure where I sit on it, but I don't really believe that, people would just be lazy, or that the majority of people would be, because I think most people, like some of the wealthiest people in the world, as much as I can't stand them, they end up so bored that they end up doing these crazy things basically just to kill time. Humans don't want to just sit down and do nothing. Right. We need something to enrich ourselves.
I think the pandemic did prove that, of how many people were like stuck in their homes, or like just 2 weeks got stir crazy,
and we're finding things to do.
We're finding things to do. So many people started Twitch streaming because of the pandemic.
How many people took up baking because they were like, "Fuck, what the hell am I going to do in my time?"
Oh, baking's a great hobby too.
Yeah,
so
it's basically chemistry.
Yes, exactly.
Bike sales went up. What was it? 790% during the pandemic.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
in fairness, it was also March when it hit. Like, literally, we were planning to purchase bikes. That was partly because we were planning to purchase bikes like the next week, and then school closed, and we were just like, "Well, it's the weekend. I guess we'll go now."
I envy you guys. You get to bike ride so early, because here, in March, we're still just completely snowed in.
Yeah,
but then there's July.
Well, the other thing it's done too is there's been a resurgence in board games and tabletop gaming. Thanks because here's the thing, because people now you didn't necessarily have to get face to face, but you could still play remotely, and so like my campaign I've been running. I play a game called Hackmaster, which is based on 1st and 2nd edition D&D, and we used to play like 2-3 times a year because that's all we could get everybody together. Now we play, practically every other week.
Yeah.
Anyway, shit, we're on 70 minutes.
Yeah, it's time to end the show.
and D&D was brought up, so Steve.
I wasn't even thinking that, but it's like, all right, they're talking about tabletop gaming. It's time to cut this off.
Now it's time to say goodbye to Steve's Patreon.
The plugs are already in the live chat. Go check that out. Please be sure to check out Charity Links page as well, especially, and like give money to Joanna especially, but also Phoenix and Joanna's son Casey needs money. So, and I'm nearly tapped out. But later on this week, Steve, what do you have coming up on the Steve Shives YouTube channel?
Me? Yes. Well, Dana and I will be streaming together on Wednesday as usual. We will be watching it's Trek Reluctantly, but we just yes, Dana.
I might have a conflict this Wednesday. I don't know yet.
Oh, okay. Well, then we might not be.
I think we have a family birthday, but there's been a bug going around here, so I don't know if we're going or not.
Stay tuned.
If Dana can't show up, then you need to get a substitute guest who calls himself Zool. Because then there is no Dana.
we made that joke a couple of days ago, didn't we, Dana? We were talking about something, and you spoke in like kind of a low voice, and I was like, "Oh, that must have been Zool."
I'm like, they're still in there.
Yeah.
So, but seriously, okay. So, which one of you guys wants to be Zool?
I love that Zool.
They'll never know the difference.
They'll never know the difference.
I'll even get the horns.
If I try to do that voice, I'll cough up my larynx.
Oh my goodness!
What a lovely singing voice you must have.
Yards, make a Dana avatar that speaks based on what you're saying.
Oh, a Dana VTuber. That'll be something. That'll be
I found out. I found out she sleeps above the covers, 4 feet above the covers. Yeah, I know we're doing schedule permitting, I suppose. We are doing Trek Reluctantly Wednesday night, where we will be watching the last episode of Hilda before we do the Hilda movie. But because last week was Deep Space Nine, and week after this coming week will be Deep Space Nine, so it's an off week for Deep Space Nine. So we're watching Hilda, and then Friday is my my question and answer live stream, Ask Away, and Monday I have a video going up. Like I said earlier, a pre-recorded, a proper video about the Biden student loan thing, and then Wednesday is my long-awaited video on season 3 of the Orville. Because I do Star Trek videos, so naturally I must also do Orville videos.
Awesome.
So
the best Star Trek show on TV.
I don't want to spoil my video. But season 3 of the Orville was really, really good, and I would rank it if I did rank it with the Star Trek shows. Season 3 of the Orville would rank pretty high. So yes. But anyway,
If Strange New Worlds wasn't so good, that would be a definite statement. But yeah,
that's the thing. Strange New Worlds came along and kind of blew the whole thing up, because it was like, well, because I've liked it. I like the new Star Trek stuff for the most part, but it's like, it has its moments and it's up and down in terms of quality. But then Strange New World comes along and is like, no, that's pretty much just good from start to finish. Like
no caveats. It's go on.
It's just consistently great. So sorry, Orville. You got your shit together in your second season and became a good show, and then your third season was terrific, but Strange New Worlds has snatched the crown.
I still put the Orville over Strange New Worlds, even though I do like Strange New Worlds.
The Orville, the Orville's third season was terrific, fantastic. So so good that I think even those of us who see through, those of us who recognize that Seth MacFarlane is playing the lead for no other reason than it's Seth MacFarlane's show. like even that he did the thing that like the people who create Star Trek fan series do. Like it's always, well, who's playing Captain Kirk? The guy who created the show? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Wait. So here's my question though. Like, I mean, no, I guess you probably wouldn't. But what? I mean, come on.
Well, that's why I sympathize. I sympathize. Actually, in my video, I have a line for that. I say, like, honestly, if you're gonna do a wish fulfillment show, why not just go for it? Like, it's obvious that he wanted to do a Star Trek show and wasn't able to do that. So he said he crossed the street from Paramount to Fox, scratching out the references to the Federation and Starfleet in his script as he walked. And he was like, I got a hell of a show for you folks, and that was the Orville. But
it's like 50 Shades of Grey, except it's Star Trek.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think the smartest thing they did though now on Hulu is that they it was very clear for Fox. They felt the need to amp up the parody part of it.
Yeah,
and there's far less parody. It's far more serious show now.
It's almost I mean, it's really like it made that transition in season 2, I think. But if you were to just watch season 1 and then go straight to season 3, it would be super jarring. It's like a completely different show. The tone is way different.
Hang on, guys. Are we still live?
We will not be in a few seconds. I'm taking control of the stream. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody.
That's what you think.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Patreon.com/Steve Shives, or click the join button to support me here on YouTube. I really appreciate it. We'll be back next month to do this again. So thanks for the support and thanks for watching. Bye, everybody.
Bye.